here in Pashas Miketz Perek Mem Aleph Pasuk Lamed Hey. So I just want to make one comment, something I noticed this morning. We've been speaking a lot about Tehillim Kuf Mem Zayin and its connection to our Parsha. We've also been discussing Tehillim Pei Aleph, the Sheshaniah of Yom Chamishi. And I just noticed that there's an interesting parallel between the two, which is that in Tehillim Kuf Mem Zayin, Kitev Zamra Keinu Kinaim, and in Pei Aleph it says Suzim or Susef Kino Naim. So they both use that word, which is not very common. So, okay, talk about how both of them talk about the Zemer and the Imus. That's appropriate. Okay, so that's maybe a code word. It tells you that the two are dealing with the same thing, which they are, as we discussed. Okay, let's read Pasuk Lamed Hey and Pasuk Lamed Vav. Last week we spoke about the Kol Eichel, the beginning of Pasuk Lamed Hey, and the Shonim HaTovis, and how Yosef is focusing on the fact that these are good years. This is Paro's opportunity to get maximum control up to Kol. And as we see later in the Parsha, ends up being innumerable, the control, the amount that Paro takes in. Okay, but let's read those psukim. V'yitbetzu kol oichel hashonim ha'toves habos elevit pruvar tachas yad Paro oichel be'ar maru. So stockpile the food. What the difference is between bar and other words is something that a lot of Mepharshim discuss over here, but I didn't want to look into that. Tachas yad Paro, I think we mentioned last week that he's offering him control. And oichel be'arim v'shamaru, to put the food into the cities where they will watch it. So I want to talk about that tonight. What is the significance of, what's the point? What's he saying? Put the oichel in the cities as opposed to what, and why is that significant? If you the oichel will serve as a bikod, something that's being watched on behalf of the oretz. Okay, so let's talk about the second half of Pasuk Lamed Hey, to put the food in the cities, in the arm. The purpose of that is, as the Pasuk says, V'shamaru. Meaning, if you have a lot of food, you could keep it out in the fields, but then it's not protected. It's important that it be Tachas Yad Paroi and under protection. And that goes along with this idea that he's offering Paroi not just a means of keeping his populace alive, but really it's about control. This is about control. So he's telling him we're going to have the food in the cities where it can be under lock and key, right? And later we see this idea that's stressed in Pasuk Nun Vav, where Nun Hey and Nun Vav, where everyone's hungry and they come to Paro and he says, go to Yosef. So Pasuk Nun Vav says, Vayiftach Yosef. He opened it up. In other words, you could have had, well, there's not really a hunger because the food's available. No. There's a hunger. There's a major problem. And they have to beseech Paro because Paro is in control. But then Paro is not really in control because really Yosef is in control. But the idea is that at least nominally you would expect Paro to be in control. And that's what Yosef offered him, right? That it would be Tachas Yad Paro. And indeed they came to Paro to petition him to save them. But because he had transferred control to Yosef, so then they turn to Yosef, and Yosef opens it up. So Vayiftach Yosef in Pasuk Nun Vav. Why is he opening it up? Because he said we're going to keep it under guard, B'shamaru, right? And that's bringing out the fact that it's in their control, and therefore we're supposed to understand that this is not just about food. This is about control. It's a means of getting control. And I want to just comment one thing that the Pasuk says in Tehillim. Very interesting pasuk. We put Tehillim Kuf Hey, where it talks about Yosef being Yosef is suffering in Mitzrayim and sold as a slave. And then in Kuf Hey pasuk Chaf it says Shalach Melech Vayatirehu Moshel Amem Vayifatechehu. So Paro was Peseach for Yosef, right? And then Samay Adon Leveso Yomoshel B'chol Kinyane. He made him the Adon in his bias and the Moshel of all his possessions. Lesser Sarav Benafshay. He gave Yosef the power to lock up Paro's Sarim. Right? So it's interesting. We have, first of all, we have this Vayiftach. Yosef opened up, and here it's that Paro was Vayifatach, or Vayifatach, he released, right, Yosef, right? And he gave Yosef the ability to lock up people, which is interesting because we don't find that. We don't find in our parsha that Yosef, that he told him like specifically locking up people. We do find he locked up Shimon, and he locked up the Shon. Maybe that's the point. Like, oh, here Yosef is acting as the one who has the power to lock up. But it says lesser Sarav. So I think we have to read it like this. Firstly, as we discussed last week, and we'll see a lot more of this, the grain is a metaphor and a proxy for people. Controlling the grain is really about controlling the people. That's what we're really, right? And we spoke about last week that the grain that increased in an innumerable way is really, it means that we're really looking for the Bnei Yisrael who are supposed to be like that. And that's the Rav L'Shmor Dvar Hashem, is the right kind of people. But, so really this is about controlling the population of Mitzrayim. Okay? Meaning the one who controls the Tvu controls the people. So if Yosef is the one who keeps the Tvu under lock and key, then that's really supposed to be a metaphor for keeping the people under deciding who's released, right? So like by Moshel Ameh Vayifatchehu really actually is the same word. It's Vayiftach Yosef. I think it's because it's about the same idea. It's about power. It's about power over people, because the grain over here is really a metaphor for people and also the means of controlling people. So, and also really continues from before, because we had earlier in Pashas Vayeshev about everything being B'yad Yosef. First Yosef is B'yad HaYishmael, and this is in Perek Lamed Tes. He's in the Yad of the Yishmael, and they're controlling him, they're controlling a human, right? And then the Potiphar puts everything B'yad Yosef in Pasuk, in Perek Lamed Tes, Pasuk Vav. And then, at the end of Perek Lamed Tes, the Sar Beis Asar places B'yad Yosef is called Ha'asirim, right? So really having the Yad is having control of humans. First Yosef is not in control of his own body, he's B'yad HaYishmaelim. And then he has power within the house of Potiphar, and then he actually becomes in charge of the people who are in jail. But he's still a prisoner. Now when Paro puts everything B'yad Yosef, right? And Vayasef Paras Tamatim Al Yad Al Yad Yosef, here is when the Yad Yosef is complete. And the Yad Yosef is about the ultimate Yad, the ultimate power is about controlling people. And hence it says in Tehillim, lesser Sarav Benafshe, because the whole power throughout this parsha has been about, the ultimate power has been about controlling people. Yosef himself being in heaven and then controlling the people in jail, and here getting the power to do that. But again, like I said, it's also that the Tvuah is a metaphor for people. So releasing the Tvuah, him being the one who could release the Tvuah, means he's the one who decides. It's a marshal for this idea. He decides who's free and who's not. And if you look also at this pasuk, next pasuk where it talks about the Pikadon, right? We spoke about this, that the Tvuah is the metaphor for Bnei Yisrael. So he's saying that the Tvuah is a Pikadon, something that's waiting to be released. Really, and in the pasuk Lamed Daled, he's Vayafkid Pekidim Halaretz, and really, of course, Bnei Yisrael are the ones who are the Pikadon in Mitzrayim, and they're waiting for the Pakod Yifkod, right? So the grain is being a marshal for Bnei Yisrael, who need to be freed, or are Pikadon Ba'aretz until time comes for them to be released, right? That's also there. So Yosef then, who controls the Tvuah, back to the pasuk in Tehillim, it's like you could say, he controls the people. He controls who's free and who's not free. Okay, so that's the idea of putting the Tvuah into the cities, is putting it under Paro's control. But I want to show you something else. There's another thing going on about the Urim, about the cities, and that's in this pasuk, which is a much debated pasuk, what it means. The Perek Mem Vav, Perek Mem Zayin, pasuk Mem Chaf Aleph. Perek Mem Zayin Pasuk Chof Aleph. So Yosef bought all the land, all the fields, and the arts became paris. Ves ha'am ha'avir oiso le'arim. Miktzei gavol Mitzrayim ad katzei. So what does that pasuk mean? There's much debate, okay? There's much debate what that pasuk means. Some say Rabbi Yosef Choshar says means he moved them from city to city. Targum says Mekirve le'kirve. Rabbi Yosef Choshar says, yeah, they were doing a circuit of the cities because the Eichel was ba'arim. So when the food would be used up from one of the arim, then the people would move to the next year. Okay? However you touch that pasuk, I think it's interesting that there's a focus on the arim, meaning he puts the Eichel ba'arim, and then he moves the people the arim, right? So there's something about the city. So what I want to show you is that there's something, that this theme about the cities of Mitzrayim appears in many of the nevuos that work with our parasha, and the ways that it appears can shed light on the significance of the Eichel Ba'arim, and also on the significance of the fact that people were moved to the Arim. Okay? Yep. So let's start with the basic idea of the pasuk, is that Yosef is giving power control. He's telling them, I'm giving you control because you have these cities, and the cities down are the place where power has control and can guard things, can watch things, and he's going to put the Eichel into those cities so that power has that power. So this suggests the idea that the cities of Mitzrayim are powerful, mighty, and this is picked up in Yechezkel. So let's see. In Yechezkel Perek Chof Tes. Yechezkel Perek Chof Tes is the nevuah to Mitzrayim, to Parai, who crouches in his river, right, and says, "It's my river." And this is, of course, as we discussed in the beginning of Pashas Miketz. And there, Hashem says to Parai, "I'm going to pull you out of the river," and there's going to be 40 years where Mitzrayim is going to be Chorev and Shemama, right? And Miketz Arba'im Shana, they're going to come back, and this Arba'im Shana, as Chazal say, is the 40 years that are left from the destruction that Mitzrayim deserved, and that's alluded to really as 42 years because the 7 cows are repeated 6 times, the 7 rois are repeated 6 times. So really it's supposed to be 42. He only got 2 of the bad years, and the 40 are left to pay. But anyways, what I want to point out is there, take a look at Pasuk Yud Beis. It says, Nesati, Perek Chof Tes, Pasuk Yud Beis, and there it talks about the cities of Mitzrayim. Va'areha b'toich aram machar, Yechezkel, Perek Chof Tes, Pasuk Yud Beis. It says, Va'areha b'toich aram macharobis tiyen lashmama. So that the cities will be Shema. Okay? Because what Yosef did over here by putting the Eichel B'Shemaru is giving power to the cities. Right? So the nevuah that says, no, it's not, there's going to be utter desolation, it says, and the cities will be destroyed. Okay? In the other parasha of the Nevi'im, there's many proclamations that we even spoke about deal with our parsha, but one of them is also Yeshaya Perek Yud Tes. This we spoke about a lot. About Yeshaya Perek Yud Tes talks about the wise men of Mitzrayim not being able to explain, right? Not being able to give power and Eitzah, right? And what's supposed to happen then is that Mitzrayim is supposed to discover Hashem, right? That's what could have happened. And there in Perek Yud Tes of Yeshaya, Perek Yud Pasuk Yud Ches, V'yoyim hahu yiyu chamesh orim be'eretz Mitzrayim v'dabris vas Canaan v'shabos Hashem tzavokos ira hares yom ela'aches. So there's going to be 5 cities that speak the language of Canaan. We spoke about this Sfas lo yadati Eshma, the fact that Yosef speaks to Parai in Mitzris, and instead of the Sfas Canaan. And when this is resolved, there's going to be 5 cities that speak the Sfas Canaan, and one of them is called Ir Hares. So again, here Yosef is promising Parai might and power to the cities of Mitzrayim, Oichel Ba'arim, and the Navi says, look, the cities of Mitzrayim really are supposed to be Medaber Sfas Canaan, right? Okay, now another place where we have this is in Yirmiyah. And this is in Yirmiyah Perek Lamed Gimel. In Yirmiyah Perek Lamed Gimel, so let me remind you, also this is something we spoke about a lot, but in Yirmiyah Perek Lamed Gimel, starting from Pasuk Yudala, let's say, Pasuk Yudala talks about the Davar HaToiv Asher Dibarti. And the Davar HaToiv Asher Dibarti is that even though they're in exile, everything's going to be fine. They're not going to be cut off. There's going to be a Tzemach Tzedakah for David. Okay? And they're going to be brought back to Eretz Yisrael. We spoke about Yosef said the Davar Shadibati, Davar Shadibati, Paris, Pare, and Yosef was telling Pare everything's going to be fine in Mitzrayim because he's protecting himself, who's in exile. And really, Yirmiyah's message is everything's fine. You don't have to worry about it. Hashem has everything under control. And one example we spoke about is there it says in Yirmiyah. Take a so again we're in Perek Lamed Gimel in Yirmiyah, and there it says take a look at Pasuk Yud Zayin. Koyamar Hashem lo yikoreis David Ishay Shel Akisi Beis Yisrael. And so Yosef was afraid. Yosef was afraid. He's in Mitzrayim, and Mitzrayim is going to be Nichras. But really, the Zera David, which is the Malchus, will not be Nichras. And if you look also at Pasuk Chabez there, Asher lo yisafer tzvah Shemayim v'lo yimad chol hayom, kin arbe Zera David Avdi. So this we spoke about last week. There's a riboy going on in Mitzrayim, right? There's a riboy, kachol hayom. But what's that really about? It's really about Zera Yisrael. So Yosef is worried about him, and his family, or being nichad, and being nichras, and really the fact that there's chol hayam actually is a mashal for the riboy that's guaranteed to Zera David and the Leviim Sharsim, and therefore he shouldn't worry about the chorus. Okay, that's one of the things we spoke about. I mean, this is a new thing, the chol. As I realized tonight, that the chol hayom parallels what we spoke about last week. That the riboy is the riboy kachol is actually really indicates that it's supposed to be a riboy b'nei Yisrael, right? And there it says also, let's say, look at pasuk Tezvav. There's going to be a tzemach tzedakah. So the tzemach tzedakah is the teruah that stands for the riboy b'nei Yisrael. And there in pasuk Chavdal it talks about the people that are mina'etz. Mina'etz b'nei Yisrael, and we spoke about Paris being mina'etz by being mechachash Hashem. Fine. I want to add two things. One more thing to this is that the beginning of the parak, the Perek Lamed Gimel, the word comes to Yirmiyah when he's locked up. And the message is you could be in Galus and everything's going to be fine. Hashem is going to bring you back. So really back to Yosef, who's trying to claw his way out of jail, right? By giving Pare what Pare needs to hear. So the message in Nehemiah, who was in jail, is that it's okay that you're in jail. And look what he tells him. He tells him when he's in jail, Pasuk Gimel, Kra'i lai ve'eneka. Call me and I will answer you, which we have in Mizmor Pei Aleph also. Batzara karasa v'achal tzeka encha. Right? Shema mi v'idabach. The message is, don't, to Yosef heard this fast le'adati, but really you should listen to Hashem and call to Hashem and I'll answer you. So you could be locked up. But like, don't worry about it. Leave it to Hashem, right? So that's the message that's happening in Perek Lamed Gimel Yirmiyah. Yirmiyah is in jail. The chayra, he has to get out of jail. Hashem's telling him, it's okay, right? I'll take you out. Lo yikares. There's all these messages, everything's going to be fine. Okay? So I want to show you down to get to this pasuk of the Arim. Take a look at pasuk Yud Beis in that parak. Koyam Hashem tzavakos. Oidi b'makom hazeh acharv me'in adavad b'hem b'chol arav. Nevei Ra'im Marbitzim Tzoyim Ba'arei Hahar, Ba'arei Hashvela, Ba'arei HaNegev, Ba'arei Yehuda, etc. Right? That's the Perek Lamed Gimel, Pasuk Yud Beis and Yud Gimel. That's the Davar Tov. The Davar Tov is that the Arei Yehuda and the Arei Hashvela, the Arei HaNegev, and the Arei Hahar are going to be full of people. Me'ein Adam Me Behema, right? About Mitzrayim, Yechazkel says the cities are going to be Chayv and it's going to be not have Adam and Behema. And that's what Yosef was afraid of. How can I let it be without Adam and Behema? And here the message is, look, the cities of Yehuda, which don't have Adam and Behema, all those Arim are going to come back miraculously. Hashem will take care of it. Right? That's the Davar Tov. That's the Davar Shadibarti. That's the real Davar, right? What's the Davar? We spoke about this. What is the true Davar? So again, it's just pointing out to get to this pasuk is that Yosef is talking about the cities of Mitzrayim and he's going to make the cities powerful because the cities are where the king has his control. So the power of the cities, what's the word I'm looking for? Is something to the power of the king.
Subordinate?
No, but like the power of the cities, something not the deuces or something like the deuces. All right, anyways.
The deuces?
No, okay, we'll figure it out afterwards. The power of the cities enhances the power of the king. Not the word I'm looking for, but okay. And then the Navi's saying the destroyed cities that are the problem is you're not in Eretz Yisrael. Hashem's going to rebuild those cities and everything's going to be fine, right? Okay. Good, weiter. So there Yirmiyah talks about a tzemach, right? There's going to be a sprout, the sprout of David, and this I want to bring us to the last parak that we've been also discussing and show you that this cities appear there too. And this is in Yeshaya parak of Zion. Yeshaya parak of Zion. As we keep on going back to that parak, Yeshaya parak of Zion pasuk vav starts Habaim Yashrish Yaakov Yotzitz Ufarach Yisrael. Right? So they're coming, they're going to sprout. Klal Yisrael is going to be tzotz ufarach. Umolu pnei sevel tinuva. Parak of Zion pasuk vav in Yeshaya. So the Yaakov is going to come, they're going to take root, and they're going to be tzotz and parach, and they're going to fill the face of the earth with understanding. Okay? So, meaning, again, Bnei Yisrael is like a tzemach, right? Yirmiyah said they're going to be like a tzemach. The Tavua in our parak is a mashal for Bnei Yisrael, and Yeshaya says they're going to be tzotz ufarach, right? And then take a look there in Yeshaya parak of Zion, pasuk, further a few pasuk later, pasuk Yud. Ki'ir Betsura Badad. The fortified city is going to be desolated. And then be Vaish Ktsir Tishavar. The next pasuk, right? Let the grain, let the katzir break when it dries up. Don't save Mitzrayim, right? Don't save Mitzrayim. Let this fortified cities of Mitzrayim become Badad. Because remember, in pasuk Hey there, Hashem talks about my ma'oz, Yasa Shalom Li. The true Shalom is taking the ma'oz of Hashem. Yosef guaranteed the Shalom Paroi, and Yeshaya says, don't go the Mo'ez to Mitzrayim, right? We're going back to this point. So the true Mo'ez is Hashem. What the true might is Hashem. The Ir Betsura is going to be Badad. So Yosef is committed to the Mo'ez of Mitzrayim and the Shalom Paroi, and he's supporting the Ir Betsura by saying, let's make the cities powerful, right? That's mamash the Ir Betsura. And here the Davi says, no, that's going to be Badad. Let the katzir dry up and don't fortify the cities, don't strengthen the cities by putting the Eichel Ba'arim. And rather, Pasuk Yud Bey is Hashem is going to beat out the grain and collect Bnei Yisrael. Again, the real grain, the real thing that Hashem is looking for, the food that we need, is not the Eichel Ba'arim that's going to support Mitzrayim. It's the food that represents Bnei Yisrael. And they're going to be collected one by one, as we spoke last week. They're the food that we care about, not the Arim, not the Arim Mitzrayim. Okay, see, I think it's pretty clear that, right, the Nevi'im are using this, the cities, which cities we care about, which people we care about, and the Tfuah as a moshe for the cities. Okay, so those are those parshas. And now I want to show you one other place where we have cities and hunger. And here it's a different thing, meaning till now all these Nevi'im are talking about Mitzrayim and their cities. Right? Yechezkel says the cities of Mitzrayim are going to be destroyed. Yirmiyah says, corresponding to this, the cities of Ari Yehuda, Ari Negev are going to be rebuilt. And in Yeshaya says, let the Ir Betsura go. Right? Now I want to show you one other place which also seems to be darshaning our pasuk about the cities of Mitzrayim. And this is a little bit of a different context, but there's also an association between cities and hunger. Okay? I want to show you, let's learn some Amos. Amos Perek Ches. Amos Perek Ches, where there's the Kates, the Klov Kayetz, which indicates the Kates. And Amos says, gives Musa to the people who abuse the Evyain and sell them for shoes, and for the people who stockpile the grain and wait till there's a hunger, right? And then make a killing. And then Hashem's not going to forget. I'm just paraphrasing. That's like Keneged Vayishkechehu. And then Pasuk Ches talks about the river is going to come up and muddy, like the river of Mitzrayim is going to muddy the earth. Okay, as we've been discussing, and then pasuk Aleph, Hine Yom Bonu Mashem V'Shlachti Rav Ba'aretz L'Rav L'Alechem V'Letzavon L'Mayim Ki Mishmos to Hashem. The hunger, the grain is really a mashal for the davar. And what happens then when there's a hunger? V'Na'u Miyam Ad Yom. People will start wandering, right? When there's a hunger, it causes mass migrations. People go look around. So in the Nimshal, Yishaytu L'Vakish Dvar Hashem V'Lo Yimtza, right? They can be going all over the place looking for it, right? So let's talk about the word na appears in Amos in two other contexts. One of them is a very similar one, which is, this is in Parak Daled, Pasuk Zayin. Parak Daled, Pasuk Zayin of Amos, it's really Pasuk Ches, but starting Pasuk Zayin, Gam anochi manati mekem asa geshem, ba'od shosh chadosh v'katz, Hashem's making it's not going to rain, v'imtadti al ir achas elachas lo yamtir. So one city will have it and one city won't. So because some cities are going to have rain, some cities are not, people are going to have to wander from one city to the other. Okay, so in one place in Amos, which corresponds to our parasha, he says the Rav is really Shmoed Var Hashem, and people have to be Na, right? And the other place in Amos he talks about that people have to be Na from city to city because of a hunger. Okay, which brings us back to... Because of a drought. Yeah. What's your point? What do you mean?
You're saying they're looking for water, not
right.
for bread.
True. And therefore what? So water, you go to another city but not bread?
No, you could do both, but
right.
But the muscle of grain is not is 100% but mine is also
interesting.
Muscle.
Right, interesting. Right there and there it's specifically about that's going to rain one place and not the other. Yeah. But right, in our story, the going to the cities and perhaps from city to city is because that's where Yosef put the bread. Meaning, in other words, interesting because Amos is using a natural phenomenon. One city could have water, one city not. Mm-hmm. Here we have one city has food, another one doesn't because they used up the food in that city or because for some reason we stockpile the food in the cities, right?
It's decisions.
Yeah, but it's not quite a natural thing like having like raining in one city, not in the other. It's interesting what that. Yeah, it's interesting.
So it's a human planning.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay, fine. So that's what it says in Amos. So there's something about the cities being the place where people wander and go from one city to the next. Okay, we have that theme in Parashas Vayigash. Yosef moved people from city to city for food. Fine, but I want to look at one more place in Amos where it says the word na, and I think this is very interesting. This is in Amos Perek Tes, Pasuk Tes. Ki hine anochi mitzaveh v'hani oisi b'chol hagoyim es beis Yisrael, kasher yinoya bakvar v'lo yipotzor oretz. So Beis Yisrael is going to be the Beis Yisrael are going to be wander among all the nations, and they're going to be shaken around like you shake around grain in a kvara, right? And no tzor falls out. Now, I'm not sure exactly what this means. I think I didn't have so much time to look at the Mefarshim here, but I think what they say is that the next pasuk talks about in other words, some people have to fall out. This is not only a positive thing. It's saying you shake a kvara, so the bad ones go out. Okay, so the bad ones go out and the good ones stay. So Bnei Yisrael have to be shaken around throughout the earth, and whoever's supposed to stay behind will stay behind, and then we'll bring them back. Okay, by Yom right? So here's another na, and here's another na, and here's another mashal of Bnei Yisrael like grain, right? But this whole idea about Bnei Yisrael grain is a mashal for Bnei Yisrael. They're the true grain because they're the ones who have the Dvar Hashem. I spoke about that last week more, right? So here the Navi is using the na, which usually happens by a hunger, and he talks about Bnei Yisrael being na among all the Goyim like grain. So I think it really actually all comes together. I'll tell you why. Because, okay, so you wander around. When there's a hunger, people are na. When there's a hunger, people wander. So that means hunger leads to exile. And Chazal say that, what's that pasuk talking about when it says, Yosef moved the people around La'arim? The Gemara says in the Chulin Daf Samach and Beis, Rishlok says there are some psukim in the Torah that you think you should burn them. They're such useless psukim, but they really contain great wisdom. And one of them is this pasuk, because who cares what Yosef did to the people? Stam. The whole point was that Bnei Yisrael are going to go into Galus. And Yosef made the whole Mitzrayim one bunch of Goyim. No one had their own land. No one had their native city, right? So basically, but okay, fine. But the idea is then that when there's a hunger, exile comes along with hunger, right? And even the native Egyptians were a bunch of exiles, right? Mm-hmm. So
even within their own country,
right? Right. So now the Rav L'Shma Dvar Hashem. Okay, when there's a Rav, there's exile. When there's a Rav L'Shma Dvar Hashem, we spoke about this more last week. Why is there a Rav L'Shma Dvar Hashem? Because Bnei Yisrael are not where they need to be. That's why there's a Rav, right? The Sava means you hear the Dvar Hashem. The Sava suggests that Mitzrayim could be a good place, but the Rav suggests that we need something. We need the Dvar Hashem. What are you supposed to do when there's a Rav? The Pasuk doesn't tell him. You're supposed to fear Hashem. You're supposed to embrace the Dvar Hashem. Because really the Rav is, right? Right? And L'chayos and Barav. It doesn't Ki Yasha Dvar Hashem. So all you need is to worry about the Dvar Hashem. Dvar Hashem Shemaim Nasu. So when there's a hunger, you should figure out how to face the Dvar Hashem, which is Yira, and you'll survive. Right? So again, so when there's a hunger, people are exiled. People are no. Which means that the Bnei Yisrael, who are the ones who could fear the Dvar Hashem, are shaloi b'mkoimam. That's what the Rav indicates. That's the Rav indicates. So therefore, the Navi is taking the midah of being no by Rav, which starts really in Parshas Miketz, and then Vayigash, and he says, "Kihina anochi b'tzavav ani yosi b'chol ha'goyim es Beis Yisrael." Oh, there's this idea that Bnei Yisrael sometimes shalom kaimam. Kasha yinoya bakfor v'lo yipotzor la'aretz. So he's using the wheat mashal because Amos shows that the not having wheat is not having the Dvar Hashem, and not having the Dvar Hashem is Bnei Yisrael being in Golus, which is right. We discussed last week that they're in Mitzrayim, they're not in the place they're supposed to be. So that's why I think
moving around like grain in it.
Like grain that's not in its place, and like okay, sometimes there's a purpose. See, here's the thing: sometimes you want to move grain around because you need to shake out the chaff. You have to get the bar right. You want to get the good stuff. Don't mix the bar and tevin. Okay, you could bring maybe that idea again, but basically, right? Maybe right. So the same thing as Yishai says. The pasuk we saw in Yishai, Perek Chav Hashem is going to beat out the grain to get out. Oh, doesn't it say the same thing? Or did I make that up? What does it say in Yishai? Hashem. Right. No, it just says he's going to beat them out and take out the grain. So same thing. So the fact that there's a hunger and people are no means that is a marshal over the fact that Bnei Yisrael has to be no among the goyim. And then again, using the wheat marshal, he's saying good, but there's a purpose in wheat being no, which is that it shakes out the bad stuff, and then the good stuff can be brought back. Okay, that is that.
So I know it's